I remember I was in Target, actually probably 3 days ago, and I actually ran into my dentist. And my dentist is from Mexico. She's Mexican, so I ran into her as I was walking around looking for things to buy, for my mom and sister. And she's like, well, I run into her. She's on the phone, and it takes me like a good 10, 15 seconds to get her attention because she's like on the phone, looking on the aisle, looking for things that she needs. But I don't want to like go up to her and startle her. So I wave and then I walk closer to her. She's like, oh, hey, how you doing? So we're talking a little bit. And then I can't remember. There was suddenly a switch to Spanish. I can't remember if I switched it or if she switched it. I think I said something, and I felt so rushed and so flustered. And I had to remind myself, Dejor, you got to slow down. Why am I despacio? I was just giving one of my subscribers this word of advice. She was asking me, how can I improve? Go like slow yourself down, right? And I was speaking fluently, and she could understand me, and I could understand her, but it just felt very overwhelming. Maybe the first 8 to 10 seconds, because I was like, oh, this sudden switch from English to Spanish is very, very sudden, and it just caught me off guard, to be honest. So understanding that English and Spanish have paces or velocidades that are a lot different from each other. English is a lot slower of a language, and Spanish is a lot faster. So, como que cuando cambiamos de idioma, when we change languages, it was like, oh man, like, okay, I got to lock into the Spanish side of my brain, right? So I think that's a good, I don't want to call it a tip, but I guess a good piece of advice for those who are learning Spanish. Spontaneity, if I'm saying it correctly, or spontaneous moments are the greatest tests of your Spanish proficiency. How well do you do? How well can you articulate yourself? And how well can you communicate yourself in spontaneous moments, right? This is going to be the ultimate indicator, right? Because it'll be a moments where maybe your frame of mind or your thought process is in English, and then maybe you hear some Spanish or somebody asks you something. I've literally had moments where, like in my neighborhood, there's this woman who lives in my neighborhood, and I walk past, like I'm on one of my daily walks. It's like in the afternoon. I'm just taking a walk to clear my head, let off some energy. I walk past her and she says something to me in Spanish. She says, "Que día super lindo," like what a beautiful day, or something like that. And I'm like, "Sí, claro." And she's like, "Oh, habla español." She's like, and I'm like, "Sí, hablo," like I speak Spanish. So like spontaneous moments, right? And then her daughter walks out the house, starts talking. She introduced me to her daughter, her husband, like, and we're all just talking. And it was just such a crazy moment. And then their attention was divided between talking to me and something else. So then they just put me to the back burner, just forget the conversation with Dejord, and they start talking to somebody else. And I'm like, okay, nos vemos. And I keep walking. But the point I'm trying to give you through these personal anecdotes is that spontaneous moments will really give you an indicator of how well you're doing, of how proficient that you are. And it'll really give you insight, and it'll give you perspective, right? Sometimes the Spanish speaker might throw you a phrase that's a little too fast, or not. I don't want to say too fast because that's the pace of the language. Let's just say you don't understand it. Like my dentist said something to me, and because she did I actually cracked my tooth in the back, and she did a procedure where they had to numb my gums and go in and like fix it, right? And she's like, ¿Cómo se sienten tus dientes? And she said it, and I didn't expect her to ask me a question, so I asked her to repeat it. And I was like, okay. And then I reiterated back to her. I'm like, usted me está preguntando los dientes, ¿cómo se sienten? And I was like, o sea, se me mejoró, se siente mejor, ya que he dedicado tiempo para que yo me cure. Like I feel better now that I've given myself time to heal. So those spontaneous moments, lean into those. Don't beat yourself up if you couldn't understand or if you really struggled and it was awkward. That's okay. It gives you insight of where you are, and then that'll help you work towards where you want to be. I heard this analogy of a rubber band. A rubber band has tension when you stretch it, right? You want to maintain that tension between where you are and where it is that you want to be. When you stretch a rubber band, like there's elasticity. It's where you are and where you want to be, and maintaining attention. And I understand that might be a little bit, I don't want to say it's vague advice, but it might be hard to conceptualize it. But there's a tension. You maintain that. And that's what keeps you motivated. That's what incentivizes you to stay disciplined. And just keep that in mind in your language learning journey. Make sure you share this video with a friend, and we out. Nos vemos. Ciao.